This is the Podcast. We are live and we are featuring the one and only Cee Houze, and we about to get into this Bull City Basketball League. Let's get right to it.
It doesn't matter how you feel.
I'm not taking no talk back. You see the green cap?
Y'all already know what it is. This is the Podcast, where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. We are live and we are featuring Cee Houze, my brother. Appreciate you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
No doubt. I like to get right to the conversation here. I know we brought you on. You got it on your chest, Bull City Basketball League. But before we get there, let's be clear. Where were you born and raised?
Born and raised in Durham, North Carolina.
Durham,
1977.
North Carolina.
Yep.
Word up. So, born and raised in Durham. Now, I myself also born and raised in Durham, North Carolina. I'm curious, what part of town did you grow up in?
I grew up in housing projects, McDougal Terrace.
McDougal Terrace.
McDougal, yep. Born and raised.
Shout out to McDougal. So you were born and raised. That's where you spent from elementary through high school. Did you spend all of your growing years there?
Yep. Was born there, and I think we left when I was 17, 18.
So I gotta get to this because anybody from Durham hears the name McDougal Terrace. I think the neighborhood might have a certain reputation or stigma to it, right? I'm curious, how would you describe your experience growing up in McDougal Terrace during that era, I guess, of the 80s into the 90s?
All right, so my experience, I witnessed a lot. My family, we have a big family, so we were kind of close-knit. I had older cousins, both sides of my family, so I didn't have to stray away. They always kind of kept me in line. So I witnessed a lot. I grew up around a lot, but I never got involved in it. So my experience was I guess you would say, a good experience. I didn't realize, what I was growing up around or in because of my family, because it was so tight. So I don't have a horror story to tell you about growing up. Like I said, I saw a lot. I grew up with a lot of people in the streets, but I was never in the streets. So,
and what was it that you feel like ultimately kept you from going that path?
I just had people. Like I said, I had my older cousins. We're like brothers, and I had people. I had my dad. My dad I didn't grow up with him in the household, but he was a big part of my life. So I went over his house every weekend. He introduced me to sports, and so I had uncles, aunts. I had a big family, so I had a good support group. My mom.
Okay.
So that kept me away from the streets.
Okay. Word. No, I think that's important to highlight because, especially with that being one of the pillars of the podcast, strong families are definitely, I think, a critical component to strong communities. I don't know how you have strong communities without strong families, in my opinion. And that's one of the overarching goals of the podcast, is to help reinforce that just the importance of family and give people tools to help improve the family dynamics ultimately. You mentioned such a supportive group. I'm curious, what did that support look like in reality with your family being there?
Yep. So I was raised, my mom, grandmother, aunt, uncles, and I have cousins. They're more like my brothers and sisters. So I was the only child growing up, my mom's home. I have a two half brothers, but I was the only child. So I was one of the younger cousins. So I always had, we went over to my grandmother's house every Sunday for dinner. We went to Burton Elementary. So starting off, we all stayed with my grandmother. So we would walk home from school. All my cousins would be there. So we would see each other every other day. I didn't have to, I didn't wonder how I always had them to look up to, so.
And you said you started at Burton Elementary. Can we shout out some of the other schools you went to from Burton? But what was next? Just so that the people listening, Durham, we don't get to hear a lot of this stuff. So what were some of those schools that you actually walked the hallways in?
Yeah, so it was Burton Elementary, the Burton Rams, Shepherd, Panthers. I went to Holden for a half a year. Mm-hmm. But I went back over to Shepherd and then Hillside.
Wow, we at it, man. quick commercial
Oh
break.
yeah,
Shout
my
out to Old
boys.
Hillside, man. We definitely officially, unofficially sponsored by the team, man. So shout out to Old Hillside.
Same here, man. They helped me a lot with my league too, so they've been big supporters. So
Word up, man. Shout out to
yeah.
Old Hillside. Cheers. And so, like, going to Hillside, like a lot of a very just the brand of that school in Durham, it's what it is. I call it a HBCU, even though it's a high school. Like so many black folks, prominent black folks that come through Durham, graduated from Hillside. Anything that you remember in particular about those Hillside days? And you were at Old Hillside at this time too. This is before the new Hillside, correct?
It was the first class in the new Hillside though.
First class in the new Hillside.
Yeah,
Interesting.
96. So started out in the old Hillside in the new one, 1996. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you actually got a little bit of both. I'm
Yep.
curious, what was Old Hillside like in your opinion? Before we talk about, say, the version that most of us know now.
The old Hillside, I think it was like an HBCU. When we were in the elementary and middle school, we heard all these stories about Hillside and the football team, the band, the track. So it was just like, it was a lot of fun. I wasn't as focused as I should have been because I got caught up in all the fun, so. But it was a lot of fun. We had some great teachers. We had like Mr. Henry, one of the assistant principals, Miss Morris, Coach Ford. Coach Ford was at Shepherd, but we had some good teachers that really kind of like tried to nudge us in the right direction. Even though, like I said, I wasn't as focused as I should have been, but it was a lot of fun. I didn't realize the history until I left. Because at one point it was all black. It was all black. It was just, it was like a big family. So.
Being at Hillside, like, did you participate in any of the fun stuff, as you mentioned, as it relates to athletics or Hillside's also known for like the fine arts and the theater department? Like, did you participate in any of that stuff at school?
I did not, because I guess that's another part of so growing up, my mom was a Jehovah's Witness. So that made me a Jehovah's Witness. So they didn't believe in us playing any kind of like sports or anything like that. So I hung out with all the guys that played. I played gym with them. We played, like at the park or on the weekends I played, but I couldn't participate. And that was one of the reasons why I don't think I was as focused in school, because I was kind of upset that I couldn't play. So yeah, so that's kind of my story. I wanted to play. I felt like I was good enough to play, like to make JV or make the team or whatever. But I could never join the team.
So you grew up Jehovah's Witness? That's correct? Forgive my ignorance because I don't know much. I know certain people grew up, like Michael Jackson, I think, might have grew up, and maybe, or was it Prince? Might have been Prince.
Oh, both.
Both?
I think Michael Jackson grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. I think Prince came on later.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know much about the religion outside of the stereotype of like walking around knocking on doors. Like, what was that experience like for you being a Jehovah's Witness? I'd be curious just to hear some insight into what that's like growing up in that sort of household.
Well, I think my mom became a Jehovah's Witness when I was like 4 or 5. So I remember, Christmas up until like 5, and then we just stopped, celebrating. We would come over the day after or later that night, to my family's house. So growing up in the beginning, it was cool. That's all I knew. It helped me in school at first, because like you had to come up with these mini lectures or mini talks, as they call them. And that did help me in school. In the beginning, I know how to do outlines and all that. I know how to read at an early age because of that. So in the beginning, it was cool.